Hey everyone, welcome to Hope Survival YouTube and the Truth Seeker series. And I'm here with one of my favorite people and my brother in Christ and Pastor Kermit Mcpeek down at the Crossing Church in Kodak, Tennessee. And I would encourage you to find the website and listen to his services. Put your seatbelt on before you do, and come and listen to some good Christ preaching.
So since this is a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here, and that respect is so mutual. I love you, brother.
Love you too.
Since you're on YouTube, you can actually find our YouTube channel,
Yep.
The Crossing Church in Kodak, and there's actually about the last 10 years worth of sermons on there, so there's plenty.
I know that we have a couple of Hope for Survival folks in North Carolina and in outside of Atlanta, Georgia, that watch you.
Oh, that's great.
Brother Otis has been here a couple of times with me when they come up from the Atlanta area to Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, and he loves coming here. He likes your style, and as do I. So I've asked Pastor Kermit to join us to to talk about a topic that some may think that it's simple, but I can tell you with conversations I've had one-on-one with many who tell me, excuse me, they tell me they have trouble having the Jesus conversation. They have barriers. They don't know how to start the conversation, or if they get rejected, then they stumble. And I've asked the pastor to share his thoughts on ways that may help you and encourage you to go about this.
Sure.
Because we need as many seed planters as we can get.
I can't say I wish, but I think it's important that we understand that the church body sees a whole lot more people than the church does a couple times a week. And it doesn't really matter how good the sermon is on Sunday if the church is mainly there who's there to hear it. So always try to encourage everyone when they leave to share the message they heard in some way, or a part of the message, or if they thought of someone during the message, to be sure and tell them that I thought of you while I was listening to the sermon Sunday. So you're exactly right. We lots of times are a little bit different kind of calling in the sense of a lot of the time throughout the week, instead of the old term soul winning, lots of times we're studying our message, to share on Sunday. But I still do love to share my faith, and I've had some mentors and some people over the years tell me some things that when you asked me about this topic, I've been thinking about it ever since you asked. And one of the things I think that's really important anytime you take on something, just I don't even know if you realized you did it, but when you discussed the topic, you crossed your arms, so your body language, that's something that is difficult. It's something that even though we have our faith in Jesus, we've been trained a lot of times. So one thing I'll tell you is to check your training, because some of us have been trained that it's wrong to share our faith, or that it might offend someone.
Oh yeah.
And the truth about it is the Bible tells us that it will offend. So that's why we lots of times have that. The other thing that I've noticed is a lot of times we shy away from sharing our faith because none of us like rejection. And there's a high percentage chance that you're going to get rejected. But if you are a person of faith, I want you to think about this just for a second, because I really got challenged a few years ago with this notion. How many times did or were you exposed to the faith or a message or the gospel before you actually responded to it? Now, here's what I was told, and I've tried to verify it. I've looked online and I've seen different studies, but the best number that I've seen in looking at everything I've read is that on average, the faith or Scripture or Jesus needs to be shared with someone at least 25 times before they respond. Now, as you're sitting there thinking about how many times you were exposed to it before you responded, just think about this. If we put all the pressure in the world on ourselves to get a decision from someone, we're really missing the mission.
Yep.
Because the mission is to share the faith. What they do with it,
Open their eyes.
eventually,
Yeah.
eventually it's going to happen. Like I said, on average 25 times. That means sometimes somebody might do it 14th time, somebody else might do it the 40th time. But if our fear of rejection and our worry of offending, or whatever other reason that we have of not sharing the gospel, if that keeps us from sharing the gospel, we're missing the mission. That is the Great Commission, is for us to go and share the gospel. And the other thing too is what happens inside whenever, anytime, just like right now, we're sharing about our faith, and I'm excited, and I got 8 or 9 ideas in my mind. That's the God we serve. He wants us talking about this topic.
Yeah.
He wants us talking about this very thing. We have an enemy who will have us talk about all kinds of other things, the weather, the politics, the this, the that. It's a shame that this happened, and did you see that? And all the gossip about what so-and-so's doing and our jobs and all the other things that we end up talking about. So I think there's multiple reasons why we struggle. Number one, we don't talk about it enough ourselves. Number two, we're worried about offending somebody. Number three, we're afraid of getting rejected. So it's just become something, years and years ago, I imagine, before all the busyness and before everyone was booked out 10, 12 hours a day, there was a lot more time to talk about this subject. So it's a skill. It's a skill that we have kind of lost as a society. So there's all kinds of reasons why. But I think your question is more about how do we get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
So the reverse of that is make time to talk about it yourself. Because if you're not talking about it, you're not familiar with it, and you're going to stumble through it. And if you stumble through it, people might think that you're not being genuine with it. Or if you're not excited about it, if you are kind of sheepishly sharing your faith, listen, we're to boldly approach the throne of grace. We're to know who we are as the sons and daughters of God. So when we share our faith, it has to be in confidence. It has to be in the right moment. To know that the door is opened. So all those things play in. Hate to give you the pastor's answer. I've talked for a long time, but if you really want to know what I think the biggest issue is, I don't think we know the Word well enough. And I don't know if that's how you expected me to answer that or not.
We're on the same.
But you can't fake your way through it.
Yeah.
You
need to go with the tools.
If you're speaking from your heart and you have what you need, and you have a working knowledge and a relationship with Christ enough to where you can actually give examples about how He helps you, give examples about what He saved you from, give examples of the direction that He has you going, those are the foundational things about our faith that people really need. So if you're not thinking about it in that way, and really your faith has just been something that you made a move a long time ago, and since then you've just been going to church and you enjoy the fellowship and you enjoy the dinners that are there, and you're not in position to be a soul winner. So I think staying sharp, and I think realizing that it is the Great Commission for us to share the gospel. It's not really an option. All of us are to share what we've been freely given.
Yeah, I think personally, or as a person, when you start taking the time daily to get in the Word and you have established that personal relationship, your level of knowledge and confidence in that alone is when, excuse me, when you get rejected, you're not going to drop your shoulders and turn and walk away.
Right.
You know, something as simple as a conversation, how's your day today? I'm blessed. You know, I'm blessed. I woke up this morning. That can be a door opener. Oh, really? Tell me how. You know, or it's a beautiful day today. Amen to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a conversation starter. It doesn't. You don't have to overthink it, but you've got to have. You've got to have yourself together. Or else you're likely going to keep getting rejected. And even if you have yourself together, you may still be. But why? If you're worrying about offending someone, when they shun you, does it not offend you? Right?
Yep.
And you know what? The person who you may offend, they may be the person that needs to hear it most. You don't know. It's kind of like people we see in passing. We speak to total strangers and ask them how they're doing and how their day's going. You have no clue what is going on in that person's life and in their mind. And you might be just being kind to that person. That might be the door opener, you know. And I think every situation, the message is the same, but I think that many of these opportunities are different in that the circumstances of that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I share a story with you,
Okay.
and I think this is a pretty relatable story because this is not Pastor Kermit. This is Child of God Kermit.
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably 10 years ago, because all our girls were really young. Might have even been 12 years ago. We had all four of them because I vividly remember I was going home. I had gotten off work, and my wife called and said, "I need you to stop at the store because I'm cooking dinner, and I need this, 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 and this, and I need you here as soon as you can." Well, job site's 35, 40 minutes from home, so I say, "Okay, I'm 40 minutes. It'll take me 10 minutes in the store or so slow everything down. Make sure you don't need any of this before 50 minutes or whatever." So I drive as fast as I can drive, get to our little local grocery store down there. I see you there all the time, that same one. And the reason I mention which one it is in particular is because the traffic situation there.
Yeah.
I've wrecked there 3 times.
Really?
3 times I've been hit in that parking lot. It's to the point that I just park out at the end and walk in. But anyway, all that being said, I pull in and it's crowded and I'm kind of on time. But I know I've only got a short period of time to get in there, and everybody evidently had the same idea I did, that they needed to pick something up because it was running over. And I pull in and the traffic's backed up. There's not a parking place anywhere. First thought is, well, I'm going to back up. I can't back up because 3 cars already pulled in behind me. So I'm sitting there in that line and I'm looking up there and I can see that there's this van, and it's got the whole parking lot held up. Everything is held up, and I'm thinking, what in the world is this? Why would you? Are they parked? What's going on? Anyway, finally, for time's sake, 10 minutes go by. So there's my whole 10 minutes gone, right? I end up parking, and I'm running in the store as fast as I can. I grab a buggy. People recognize me as Pastor Kermit. People recognize me as someone who's well put together on Sunday mornings, right? But in that moment, I am a rushed and heated husband trying to help his wife, and worried about what happens if you don't, so all that's on my mind, and I grab a buggy and I'm swishing through, and I see 2 or 3 people I know, and they're like, "Hey," and I'm just kind of waving them on, and I'm like, they'll have to forgive me, and then as I'm just in the front of the store, I get there and I notice one of the people who I saw park that van is in front of me, and I notice that he's pushing a lady. I don't know who it is at the moment, but he's pushing a lady in a wheelchair, and she's severely handicapped. And then I notice another guy come up. So there's two guys and a girl, and they kind of go to this side of the store, and I go to the other side, and I'm grabbing things that my wife tells me to get. And as I get over, I get into the meat section, and there's something in there that I'm getting, and I look over, and the little girl that was in that wheelchair is sitting there, and she's just looking at me, and she's smiling. And immediately I felt conviction, and I thought, you need to slow down. You know, I could feel that. As a person of faith, you need to slow down. Something's happening here. So I go over, and I notice her. And that's what's on my mind, is everybody's walking by her, and nobody's speaking to her, and she's just sitting there, and she's looking straight at me. So I go over, and I just kind of pat her, and I say, hello, how are you, beautiful? And she gets the biggest kick out of that, you know, and I think, well, that feels good. Thank you, Lord, you know, let that happen. And I go back over. Well, while I'm picking up what I need, one of those guys who's with her kind of taps me on the shoulder. And I just kind of spin around. I'm like, can I help you? He said, why'd you do that? I said, excuse me? He said, why'd you talk to my sister that way? I said, man, all I said was she's beautiful. And about that time, he had tears running down his face. He said, there's 500 people in here. Nobody noticed her. Why did you do that? So right there, at this moment, I'm in the ice cream aisle now.
Yeah.
I'm talking to her brother, and I get to share my faith. And he confesses Christ in the ice cream aisle. Now, dinner is shot. I'm going to have to deal with that when I get home. But how many opportunities do you think we miss by being too busy? And how many opportunities do we fall short of? I thought I was supposed to speak to that little girl.
Yeah.
I had no idea that God was setting me up to share my faith. How many opportunities do we miss? Divine opportunities. Actual opportunities where we are the conduit. We are the one who's actually going to lead someone. We miss most of those. But we put pressure on ourselves, and we pick people that we want to share our faith with. And when they reject us, then we get offended. We don't get to share our faith with who we want to. We get to share our faith with who God aligns us to. And who He's going to bless us to work on. So all of those things go into sharing faith. And we're all learning as we go. My wife forgave me, you know.
But did the girls?
Yeah. I don't think they even noticed.
Yeah, I understand I completely understand what you're saying. It's kind of like, when you look out and you see everything around you, it's like there's things that you see that everyone misses. You know? And they say that the Lord works in mysterious ways. I have a good friend up in your home state. He's a little bit older than me. Really good Christian guy. And just love him to death. And about 2 years ago, he was retired military, and he was working 2 full-time jobs and a part-time job, riding an ambulance. He was a medic, and he was retiring, and he was on his last ride. 3 o'clock in the morning, they're on their way back to the where they park at the EMT area. 3 o'clock or so in the morning, and they see headlights coming at them, and the headlights are doing all kind of crazy stuff. Well, there was a cow in the road, and the car hit the cow and hit their ambulance and cut it in half, right? Anyway, they had to cut my friend out, and he had to have emergency surgery, rods and all that, and he's laid up in the hospital. Now, this is a big burly guy, right? Just he's like my friend in Alabama I told you about. Get to the point. But I went up to visit him, and he's in a wheelchair, and I watched this grown man cry. Now, he was a devout, faithful guy, sitting in this chair telling me that since his accident, he realized he didn't really know the Lord.
Wow.
And here's what happened. So he's laying in the hospital, had emergency surgery, and he has a medical event occur where he's bleeding inside, and they had minutes to get him to surgery, right? And by chance, the surgeon was in the hospital. And it was the accident that led him to the hospital, because he learned after the fact, had he not had the accident, that whatever it was was going to rupture.
Wow.
And he would have bled to death. But it was through that accident that got him where he needed to be, and that surgeon there, right? And I'm sitting here listening to this big guy tell me this story with tears coming down his face. And he's not talking about the fact that his life was saved. He was talking about
His soul was saved.
his soul was saved, and he knew the words.
Sure.
But now he witnessed, and he's a different man now. He's it's
Powerful.
it's
So one of the things we preached basically through the New Testament over the last few years, and 4 or 5 months ago we went back. The Lord led me to just kick off in the beginning. So we started in Genesis, and one of the things that we've seen every week through those stories of the patriarchs is that when God moves and when God does things, it's in such a way that you know it was only Him who could do it. And I think both of those stories are great illustrations of, if you are used to win someone to the Lord, or you're involved in a circumstance, again, disarm yourself, because it's not you doing it. It's God
let God do it.
using you, but it's Him doing it.
Yeah.
And if we can relieve some of that pressure, you're not called necessarily to win souls. You're called to share your faith. Share with others what was freely given to you. That's the call.
Plant that seed.
That is the Great Commission.
Yeah.
So that's one big thing is like we mentioned, that you got fear, and you got society that we live in, and you got I don't want to be rejected, and it's can I is there a proper way? One thing you can take from what we've said so far, there's no way to write a book on this thing.
Yeah.
There is no one way to share your faith. It's a matter of you living your faith. It's a matter of you being confident in your faith, and it's a matter of you noticing what you're supposed to notice, and don't take things for granted. That's something that I think a lot of us do too. Is God works in all of our lives, but we're so quick to just dismiss it as coincidence, and I don't believe in coincidence.
Yeah, and I think you're, as well as a Christian, I think that your nonverbals are equally powerful and important. People notice and watch, and a quick story. When I was working in Huntsville before I retired, probably 5 or so years ago, I used to go into work at about 5:15, and I would go in, and the building I worked in was 860,000 square feet. So I could do 3 laps down and back 3 times in the basement. It was a mile, right? And I would go in and I would do 4 to 5 miles every morning. And there was this lady who would come in, and she would walk some, and we would always speak. And anyway, one day I'm walking, and she comes over and she touches my arm, and she said, "You're the praying type, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Well, we have a Bible study early in the morning, one day a week, down in one of the offices in the basement." Anyway, she said, would you take a minute and pray with me? Right. And I said, I will. I said, but I have a question for you first. I said, when you pray, she said, she was telling me about all the problems she had going on in her life. And I said, when you pray, how do you pray? And she started telling me, and I stopped her and I said, there's nothing wrong with how you're praying, but nowhere in your prayer were you giving thanks to the Lord. See, he already knows all these things you're telling him. And she's like looking at me. And I'm like, did you thank him for waking up today? Did you thank him for being able to walk, for the air to breathe, for your safety, for your food, so on and so forth? And she just looked at me. And COVID hit. And I ran into her in the building during one of my trips down. And she pulled me aside and she said, you would not believe how much my life's changed. I said, well, what about all those things that you were telling me that were going on that were bad? She said, they don't matter.
Amen.
You know?
Perspective.
Yeah. So to anyone, you know, it's not a given that you're going to wake up tomorrow.
No.
You know?
No.
And just being thankful. But we're receiving all these blessings. And what blessings they are to share with other people.
Yeah.
You know, like the young lady that was in the chair. Just the simple fact of, hey, beautiful, how are you today? The uplifting to her, you know, and then what followed suit. So,
I'll give you a nonverbal too. You said that, and something really struck a chord inside me. So, what I did in the work world, I've since gotten into something else. I'm into construction now, but I was a commercial banker for 20 years, and while I was at the bank, I had all sorts of people come in. I met, you know, every walk of life, you know, from, you know, people who didn't have money in their checking account to multimillionaires and everything in between. And there was this gentleman several years ago, probably 15 years ago, who came in and he was applying for a loan and he didn't qualify. But I didn't just take his application and stamp a denial on it. I sat there with him and asked him some questions about his life and was genuinely interested in who he was and the business that he had. He was just getting going. That was the biggest reason why he didn't qualify. But I coached him and kind of told him, you know, through my experience, here's what you can do to maybe get a yes next time, and did a little bit of credit counseling. Mm-hmm. And I spent 30 minutes with a guy who I knew 2 minutes in that it wasn't going to work. And I didn't really know what I was doing. You know, I was just being kind, and there was nobody waiting. Yeah. You know, and he was a nice enough guy. And, anyway, half-hour conversation. And throughout the years, I saw him, you know, places, and I could see that he was doing well, and I could see that things were getting better. But I got out of banking, you know, and I was here at the church one day. I was actually here, and I was in a meeting, and his number popped up on my phone. I still had it saved in my contacts. So I stepped outside, and I was like, hey, man, I haven't heard from you in a long time. You know, how are you doing? And he said, man, you're going to think I'm crazy. I said, what's going on? He said, you remember 15 years ago, whenever you sat down and you gave me the time of day? He said, you didn't know it, but I'd already talked to 3 or 4 other loan officers, and they had turned me down. He said, and it didn't really matter to me if you said yes or no. He said, I could see that you had something I didn't necessarily not have, but I had gotten away from. He said, I've known God since I was young. He said, but I could see God in you. And he said, I've followed you over the years, and I listened to you online, and I've been watching your church. And he said, let me get to the point. he said, my partner and I have a piece of property, and we need to get rid of it, but we really don't need to sell it because it's in the middle of a subdivision and HOA, and some people in there are not really going to like it. He said, long story short, God told me to give you this property. And I said, what do you mean he told you to get? He said, God told me to give this property to the church. I don't care if you sell it. I don't care if you make a youth retreat out of it. I don't care what you do. He said, but I wanted you to know that I'm answering what God told me to do, and I want to give you this property. So he gave us the property. We cleaned it up a little bit. We worked on it a little bit, kind of checked around on what our options were. We did an auction on it. We sold that lot for $80,000. So our nonverbals and the way we handle ourselves might not pay off in the instance when we think it will, but time doesn't mean anything to God. And God knew in that meeting 15 years ago, and it was such perfect timing too, because we had such a need for those funds here at the church. You know, and that's the thing that we continually see is that his business, he takes care of it. You know, and the thing about that is we get to choose if we're part of his business or not.
Yeah.
But if we are part of his business, he'll take care of us too.
Yeah, and I think you have pointed out, and it's so important that we have a responsibility, but we have to know where ours kind of stops, and God's going to take care of this.
Absolutely.
I mean, when I was down at Hurricane Helene working in Poga, the number of people who were from outside the disaster area that were coming into the large supply tent daily and taking stuff, and they were taking it to Walmart and trying to return it, right? And many of them appeared to be addicts, but the young ladies who were volunteers that had come down from Ohio and other places, they would get angry, Christians, and they would get angry, and they would come over and say, hey, this guy has gotten 4 heaters this week. Are you going to stop him? And I paused them and I said, no. I said, the Lord will deal with it in his way, in his time. I said, our job and objective is to get these supplies in and get them out to the survivors in the disaster area. And 2 or 3 other times had they approached me with the same situation, I may have gone and stopped them.
Sure.
But at that given moment, I heard it. No, I'll deal with it, you know. So, eyes and ears open, you know, eyes on him. And you don't have to do it all.
No.
You don't have to do it
You
all.
actually have to do a very small thing.
Yeah.
You just be obedient.
Opening the
just
door.
Freely give what was freely given to you.
And so hopefully, I really, really hope that this will help some of you who are out there, especially who have emailed or spoken to me on this topic. Don't make it harder than it has to be, and don't beat yourself up because your confidence level is low. I know this pastor up in Kodak, Tennessee. I won't say his name, but he's sitting beside of me. But he's told me on more than one occasion after a service, I'll be like, Pastor, your face got all red. I was like, you gotta take a breath. He's like, man, he's like, when I was walking from the office up to during the music praise team, he's like, the Lord told me, no, this is what I want you to preach on today. And he totally changed the message.
Yep.
But he says, all I did was open my mouth. And he said, it all just started coming out. And I was trying to figure out it's coming out when I was supposed to breathe. So don't make it harder. Just carry the message. Carry the message. You know. Any last words on this topic?
Don't let it be something that, again, you think that you can make into a method, or you can make into something that you can write down. Because the truth of the matter is, the best that you can do, if you came up with a particular set of steps and rule, that might work for somebody, but you don't know who that somebody is. Again, I think it's about being who you're supposed to be in Christ, and then allowing Him to use you. And who you're supposed to be in Christ is knowledgeable of Him, close to Him, recognize when His Spirit is present, and just be present. You know, that's the biggest thing I could say about it. It's not a hard thing unless you make it a hard thing.
Yeah. Don't stumble over yourself. So, Pastor, love you, brother.
Love you, brother.
Pray for you.
I do you also.
And keep on doing great things.
You too.
And I know, as you say, that it's His message.
Yep,
right?
That's right.
And keep at it. I noticed the seats are getting fuller and fuller, and there's times there's no seats, but you know, for those who are members who come all the time, I would just encourage you to remember one thing. If you're saved, you're here at church to hear the message.
Yeah.
But I heard a gentleman say 15 years ago, keep in mind, those seats are for the unsaved. So
it's a great word.
If you're filling up the pews, just remember, if you see new people coming in, maybe offer up your seat and stand in the back and help them get comfortable.
Yep.
So, because if they stay long enough and they listen to this guy, they'll be back. I promise. So, hey everyone, thank you. Appreciate you watching this message, and hopefully you get something out of it. And remember to always give thanks, and remember how blessed we are. Bravo Echo out. Thank you for checking out the Hope for Survival YouTube channel. If you are new to Hope for Survival, you can check out our books at our webpage. Book 1, which is Hope for Survival, Getting You Prepared for Disasters, and Book 2, Hope for Survival, The Mindset, are both available for order on the website. We also offer the Hope for Survival football stick, which is a memory stick set up as a digital filing cabinet with files already loaded on there for you to digitally copy items such as deeds, auto transcript for ownership, wills, living wills, loans, banking information, items that if your home burned down or you had some form of a disaster, you could have all of your important papers already digitally filed on this stick. All you do is simply drag the digital file into the appropriate preset folder so that you'll have it in the event of a disaster. You have to flee your home in a hurry, or also if you're away from home and you need critical information that's personal, if you have your memory stick with you, you can put it in your computer and pull that information up wherever you may be. Again, you can find these items to order at our website, https www.hopeforsurvival.com, or you can email me at preparedness101@protonmail.com, and I will try to help you out. Again, thanks for checking out the Hope for Survival YouTube channel. Hope to see you again.